Hi viewers and welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be looking at Lattice2 and how to create parametric labels. I've created a spreadsheet and some placement to allow those to be placed on the screen. If we come back to the para series, you can see we've got two para series in here. One's of a sketch and one is of the text itself. This allows me to adjust these to whatever I want, or even remove some. And once we update both para series by changing the recomputing to recompute once, we'll see those change. And we can change these to whatever we want. And again, updating the para series. We also can output these to SVG, and to load them up into an external program. Here I'm using LightBurn, you could be using Inkscape, but I'm using this for laser cut, and each of these are separate as per the para series, and I've placed them onto different layers, one for a cut and one for an engrave. So I hope you're enjoying these videos, and let's have a look at this technique.
If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel.
So for this tutorial, we're going to be using the Lattice2 workbench, and we're going to be using the para series. Now I have got some videos on the para series. There's a couple of videos on the Lattice2 playlist. I advise going and having a watch of those first, and I'll leave the link in the description below and a link here. So obviously we need the Lattice2 workbench installed, and that's over in Tools, Add-on Manager. And what you'll find is we end up with a Lattice2 workbench here. The whole idea is to use a spreadsheet. So I'm now in the spreadsheet workbench. I'm going to create a new spreadsheet, and I'm going to add some text into this column here. So we're going to be using the idea of pot labels. So little lolly sticks in pots. And what I'm going to do is add a number of vegetables in here. Garlic, onions, and that's say lettuce and sprouts. So we've got our labels, it's text, and also I need to add some positioning in there. So this is going to be the positions of our labels on the screen, because I want to output this as an SVG and laser cut it, or I could 3D print it if I strewed the object slightly. So this is going to be positioning, so I'm going to go 0, 20, 40 and 60. And now I can use these in my para series. So for that, I'm going to go over to my document, and I'm going to jump into the sketcher. And first, I'm going to create a lolly stick. So along the XY plane, OK. And this is going to be really simple. All it's going to be is a slot, like so. I'm going to escape to get the mouse pointer back, and take these 2 points, so these center points of these arcs and this center point, and make those symmetrical. Set some distance, say 150 millimeters, and also set a diameter of 18 millimeters. So we have our lolly stick. Let's close that. We get a sketch. Because I'm going to be laser cutting this, I'm not going to extrude it. If you're 3D printing, you can extrude that and use it that way. So now I'm going to come over to the Lattice2 workbench, and I'm going to create my very first para series. So I'm going to use the sketch, and I'm going to come up to Lattice2, come down to series feature, and use the para series. It's also available on the toolbar here. It's going to put up an error, which is really a warning. It's just going to say about recomputing. That's fine. We hit continue. the sketch disappears. So now we come to the power series and set up the power series. So first of all, I want the value source. So this is going to be my spreadsheet, and we'll drop this down to spreadsheets. Next, our spreadsheet link. And if we can't click on the button there, just click off and come back in spreadsheet link, and you'll see the button there. This links to our spreadsheet, and hit OK. Our spreadsheet will be selected. And now what I want to do is take this column as the source. And if I look in here, what I'll find, if I move up, got the cell start, which we need to set to C1. And you can see it's pulled the data already into the values there. 0, 20, 40, 60. So I just need to add to this, say 80, and what will happen, it'll pull those into there. Just going to remove that. So we've got the power series set up with these values. Now these values are going to be placement values. So this is going to be taking that sketch and placing it across the screen so we can export it out. So for that, I need to come up to the Lattice2 power series and look at the parameter reference. And this is going to be the position of that sketch. So where it's going to be positioned. We can see the object is sketch. So we place in here sketch. And if we come into the sketch itself, you can see we've got placement. Now it's a bit strange where this placement is because I want to set the position. And the property we're going to be using is the Y. So to get to there, if I come back to the power series and use that reference, let's come down. At the moment we just got sketch and it's dot placement, and then it's dot base. Notice I'm using capital P for placement and capital B for base, and then dot X lowercase. So we've got that in there. So it's not sketch.placement.position, it's actually sketch.placement.base. Now we have that in there, what will happen is the values will be pumped into the parameter reference for each of the copies that are created. Next we come to recomputing and set this to enabled and click off. And you can see how they've been placed on the screen. Unfortunately, I've picked the wrong axis to place these across. So each of these power series, each of these are a separate copy of that sketch. Let's come into the power series and change that. And we're looking at the moment we've gone along the X, we need to go along the Y. So let's change this to Y and hit enter. And we've got those all in here ready to go. So that's our first power series done. If I exported out this power series by clicking on the power series and going file and then come down to export, then I've got a choice of the different formats to use, and I'm going to go for flatten SVG, hit save. Then when I look on the file system, I'll find an SVG with that in there. So let's close that down and come back to the power series. Now I want to add some text. So we're going to be using this text here. So for that, I'm going to come over to the draft workbench. Come back to my document. Now we're in the draft workbench, we can add our text. We use the shape string tool, shape from text, or come up to the drafting and come down to shape from text. Before we do this, we must make sure our planes are aligned. Now if I zoom out, you can see that we've got the grid. And that shows you what plane this is aligned on. At the moment the plane is correct. But if this wasn't, then I would use this icon at the top here to align the plane. To do that, we must make sure nothing's selected, because at the moment the spreadsheet's selected. If I select the icon here, you can see down the bottom we've got an error. So make sure nothing's selected and select the button. This will give you the working plane setup, so we can set up our working plane to the different views, or if we selected something, we can actually set it up to lay it on top of that. For the time being, I'm going to use the top, and that's aligned my view. And click on top, And now I'm going to add some text. Drafting, shape from text. We get the shape string appear, and we can actually place the text onto the screen wherever we want. I've got the snapping on here, but I'm not going to use that at the moment. I'm just going to place the text first. Doesn't matter about the string, which denotes the text, because that's going to change in a moment. We can deal with the height in a moment. The first things first, I'm going to change the font file. Now this will be the font location on your computer or any fonts that you've downloaded. This is a TrueType font, and they're available on Ubuntu, Windows and Mac in different locations. So you need to know the locations of your fonts. You can download one from numerous sources on the internet. And if I go into my folder, I've downloaded a font here, which if I go in, have a look at the font, I've got a TrueType font, which I can select and open that up. I'm going to place the text at 0, 0. So I'm going to reset this point here. So X, Y, and Z is all 0 and hit OK. That text has been placed. Now I can select the shape string and change the size to what I want. I'm going to put it as 5. And now I can place this string. I'm going to click on the shape string and use the move tool. Also available in modifications and move. So I've selected the shape string first, and what I'm going to do is click on the shape string and move that into place. So around about here. Now that's in place, I can use that in my power series. We can see that it's placed in the same plane as the lolly stick itself. Let's come over to the Lattice2 and create a power series against that. So select the shape string, and then we can come down to Lattice2, series features and power series, or we'll just use the tool from the toolbar. We get the error again, which is fine. Let's continue that. And now the power series has been added. So let's set up this power series. To come down and have a look what we got. So we need to come down to the parameter reference. Now let's open the power series up and have a look at the shape string. We need to change this string here, which currently is at default. So this is going to be shapestring.string. The name of the object and then the name of the parameter. We're going to be dealing with the position in a moment. Let's come back to that power series for that text and come down to the parameter reference. You can see the objects here, shape string, which we'll use, and type in shape string, match the case, so shape, capital S's, string, and then dot string. Next we need a cell, but first we need to select the spreadsheet and then select which spreadsheet it belongs to. So spreadsheet here and OK. I can see that we've got the cell B here, which has got all the text in. So cell start, and we're going to change this to B1. So I'm going to start from B1. And that's set the recomputing as enabled. Let's go back to our scene and click off. See, we've still got some problems, and it's saying could not convert string to float. And we've got a string in there of garlic. So we come down, and what we haven't done as of yet is change the parameter type. So I need to change this to string. My recomputing is enabled, and we click off, and we've got the string here. But you can see we've got a problem in that the string has changed. We've got a number of different strings in here, a number of different text, but we need to place these in the correct position. So how do we do that? Well, we need to go back to the spreadsheet and figure out a way of using two parameters. Now we can use two parameters in power series by using a semicolon. So click on this power series and come down to the parameter reference, this one here. From here I'm going to use a semicolon, and again I'm going to use shape string dot placement dot base and then dot lowercase y. So we have that parameter reference in there. So now we've got to use the spreadsheet to place that correctly. So we're coming back to the spreadsheet. At the moment, we've just got the text in here. So if I use a semicolon and the contents of cell C and concatenate that all in one cell, then we get the data that we need. To do that, I'm going to be using this cell here, and this is why I've kept it blank. So I need to concatenate these two together and separate those two values with a semicolon. To do that, I'm going to come into the first cell and use the content up here and put an equals of B1 and hit enter. When I click off, you can see that garlic has been placed in here. So this is a basic spreadsheet expression. Next, I need to add a semicolon on here. To do that, I'm going to use a plus, and then I'm going to use a little operation of 2 left chevrons, and in here I'm going to put a semicolon and then 2 right chevrons and hit enter. When I click off, you can see we've got the semicolon. Now we need to add C1, but if I do plus C1 and hit enter and click off, you can see this is red and it's saying can only concatenate strings, not integers. So this is numeric, so we've got to convert that. To do that, if I come back in, by the side of that semicolon, if I use a %s, and then where this plus is, use a % and hit enter and click off, we get what we need. What this does, it allows a conversion of string. So using the %s actually allows the C1 to be converted to a string and concatenated onto this. If I wanted to add on to this again, then I use the same expression. So if I copy this, Control C and Control V, hit enter, then we get that concatenated on the end. I only want one. And now I can copy this and copy it down. Now the best way to do that is just highlight this cell using Control C on the keyboard and Control V to place it in the next cell. And what will happen is the formula will automatically update and do the next cell. So Control V, and you can see we're getting the values that we need. Let's come back to our scene and click on this power series. We need to change the cell now because all of our data now is in cell A1, A2, A3, etc. So this column here. So let's come back and change cell start for that power series of that text and change it to A1. Those have been now placed in position. But you can see we need some more adjustment on that. To adjust that, if I come back to that power series and show the original shape string, you can see how the copy has moved position. So one thing that I can do is come back into the spreadsheet and adjust this formula to allow for a bit of an offset. So rather than 0, what I can do is surround C1 in brackets, and within those brackets I can use -5 for a bit of an offset, hit enter, and we get a -5. If I go back, you can see that's now in position. Let's hide that shape string. Let's do that to the rest. So now those are all updated. When we go back, we can see they're in the right position. If I wanted to add another one, all I do is just copy, paste, and you can see that formula has been copied down and automatically changed to the right cells, and we can just change the text and the position, and when we come in we can see we've got another one in here. Now you probably noticed this took a while to update, and that's because the Power Series itself, if you look and come down, we can see we've got the recomputing as enabled. Let's change this to disabled, and this one as well to disabled, and then any changes to the spreadsheet are a lot quicker. And we can quickly update these. And once they've been updated, let's go back and just come in and recomputing. If we set this to recompute once and do the same for the other one, recompute once means that when we click back in, if we look at the recomputing, it's disabled. So just recompute it once, and that means all of our labels have been done, and this is ready for export. Now when we export this, if I take both the Power Series, these will be as two separate SVG entities. So I've highlighted both of them, File, Export, and we'll call it unnamed SVG. Let's just call this garden labels. So those have been exported out, both of those, and looking at the file, you'll see those in there. So what I'm going to do now is open up LightBurn and show you how those appear actually in LightBurn when I import them in. So File, Import, Garden Labels SVG. So we have our labels here. Now if I click on the lolly sticks, you can see these are separated from the labels. And these labels here are totally separate. That means I can add a little offset to those labels. Okay, that. So we've got the offset there. I can see that's actually coming out the bottom. So I can fix that by changing the size of the text if I wanted to back in FreeCAD. But this does mean that I can take this and add them as a separate layer and change the speed and power when I output those to my laser cutter. So I just get the engraving for the labels and the cutting, this one here, as separate layers. So there's a practical example of using the Power Series and the Lattice2 workbench and also using it in a 2D way. So I hope you found that interesting, and I hope to see you again soon.
If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.